What's up? Okay. Echo. Okay. Now what's up? Oh man, it has taken a surprisingly long time to get to figure out the whole setup thing. One day I'm gonna get on here and it's just gonna be like smooth as butter. I know it. But I just feel like we've been experimenting with different things since we started. So actually, let me fix this. Somebody just talked to me about doing this during the stream, but I'm like, I don't know. I want to get rid of the echoes. But as usual, if you can hear me, thumbs up. Let me know if you can hear me clearly. That would be good. Because sometimes I'll be like, yeah, we can hear you. And then I go back and I listen to the audio and I'm like, yeah, barely. Like, I appreciate y'all listening so hard. But yeah, I just want to know that the audio is actually clear. I've got this Bluetooth mic on that's connected to the computer, but the video is coming from a phone. So yeah, we're just trying to figure some things out. And also the setup looks a little bit bare. I'm moving still. This has been like a ridiculous process. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to do content for a while because this move has been the okay. I don't know what to do about the echo. I can do something about the echo, but it means I'm going to be like off the screen for like I don't know, maybe 2 minutes. So yeah, and actually I can hear it too. It's bothering me. Okay, how can I do this? Give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix this next time. What's basically happening that I think is causing the echo is that like I said, the mic is connected to the laptop because there's this whole thing with like lightning cables that actually work with an iPhone, which I didn't know until I had been through like 5 different mics, and eventually I'm gonna have like an actual camera. But basically, there's audio coming out of the iPhone, but it won't let me turn it all the way down, and I don't know why. So I will figure that out another time and maybe just try not to talk as loud. But anyway, yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I've been moving, so that's why there's like a very bare backdrop because I can't even have find half my shit. Like whoever helps me move, I'm grateful to them, but like there are things that are in boxes that are labeled wrong, and there's just a lot of stuff that I can't find. So I don't know how long it's gonna be. Anyway. We're not here to talk about my life or about my move. We're here to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, and I only have a few minutes with y'all this morning, so thanks for tuning in. But yeah, obviously roster cuts happened yesterday, and yo, that was some emotional shit. Like, so I've only been covering the Cowboys seriously like less than a year. Oh, great. I have loud upstairs neighbors. This is going to be fun. But I've only been covering the Cowboys like less than a year. I wrote my first article for Inside the Star. Shout out to InsideTheStar.com last October. And it was actually about the whole Dak Prescott versus Cooper Rush thing that was happening. And at the time, I wasn't even much of a Dak Prescott fan. Like, this might be surprising to anybody who's discovered me lately, but it's like if you go back to just like tweets from like this time last year, like you'll see like I was not that big on Dak Prescott. Not that I thought he was bad. There were just some things that I picked up via body language that made me not really like him that much as a leader, if you can believe that. So yeah, that article was actually really weird for me to write because I mean, and I think there's an episode from last year where we talk about it. Martin, if you feel like looking for that, it's somewhere on Spotify. But there's an episode where we literally talked about the fact that like I'm writing this article in defense of Dak Prescott, and it was really, really weird because I wasn't that big on Dak Prescott, but I did feel like the narrative about him being replaced by Cooper Rush was ridiculous, and so I decided to say something about it. And that's what started me covering the Cowboys, writing about the Cowboys, talking about them more on the podcast, so on and so forth. But then fast forward, you start getting invested in these players' careers and who they are, or at least I do. Like, the more I learn about some of these guys, and especially because I'm the type of person to like really dig into. Morning, Mickey, what's up? I'm the type of person to like dig into like, okay, what do they do off the field? Like, what are their interests? I watch the interviews and I try to pick up different things about their personalities and things like that. And so when that happens, you start to find certain players that you just like, oh man, I really like this person. I really like that person. And for me, Simi Fehoko is one of the people who I had become really fond of as a player and as a person. And also Isaiah Land was a new one for me, who I really started to like because of his work ethic and things of that nature. And both those guys got cut yesterday. And so I definitely want to do the whole, it seems to be like the content creator format, the Cowboys content creator format, where you go position by position and say what you liked and what you didn't like about the cuts. But honestly, those are the two that really stood out for me. If you were on Twitter, then you know that Isaiah Land's cut was announced first. And when I saw that, I immediately was like, I hate this so much. And I did hate it. I hated it for him. And I'm not even sure that it's like the best thing. Well, I don't want to say I'm not sure it's the best thing for the team. There are people who get paid a lot of money to make those decisions, who have a lot more experience in that kind of thing than we did. Morning, Martin. Morning, Swain. I know it hurt. That one really hurt. And when I saw that, I was just like, okay, these cuts are officially unpredictable. Because if you can cut a guy who's number one or number two in pass rush during the preseason, then who won't you get rid of? You know. And once again, I'm really sorry about this echo. It's bothering me, so I know it's bothering you guys. I'm gonna work this out. I'm gonna work on it. But yeah, so that was the first one that really hit me, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try not to think about it. I'm just gonna keep scrolling. Well, not keep scrolling. I was gonna keep posting to avoid scrolling, to avoid refreshing. And I made a post about that too, that apparently some of y'all appreciated, because I was posting all kind of content yesterday that had nothing to do with the cuts. I'm like, okay, just stay distracted. But what happened was, because of this move, I've been exhausted, and so I fell asleep. And then I woke up, and when I woke up, like, it was closer to 3, and at that point, I was like, okay, what did I miss? And then I just started refreshing, and eventually I saw the rest of the cuts, and I saw that Simi was cut, and I was gutted, bruh. I did not think I would have such an adverse reaction to him being cut, because it's like, at the end of the day, if you saw the picture, you know I met him, but like that was like a brief meeting, you know, that wasn't like a, you know, I met your family, we're close, like, or like I'm gonna come over around Christmas time kind of thing. It was a brief meeting. It was an opportunity for me to meet and chat with one of my favorite players. It was cool. So in my mind, I'm like, I don't even know this guy, like whatever, it's his life. But like when that shit was announced, oh my God, I was hurt. And that's not even saying that I felt like he was done dirty, because if you're ever in his spaces, or you've heard me talk about this on other shows, I kind of knew there was a chance, right? And it's not that I don't think Simi is good; it's that I think his skills, the skills that he does have, I think any team that were to take him would have to have a plan for those skills. And so I was excited at practice when I saw the Cowboys line him up at tight end. I was excited when I saw him blocking a lot. But one of the things about when teams do that kind of thing is they might just be trying to get just more footage of you doing those kinds of things, so that they can, you know, try to make a trade or something. Be like, yeah, look what this guy can do. Don't you want it? Like, you know? And so I literally said in a space a couple days ago, I was like, hey, you know, if Simi does make the roster, it's going to be because the Cowboys have taken notice of these other skills, and they feel like they can use them. They feel like he'll be useful to the team. If he doesn't make the roster, it means that the Cowboys have decided that they don't want or they don't need that particular set of skills. And so I still don't agree with the people who say that Simi is a bad player. He's not. as I've discussed before, he probably has the least amount of wide receiver experience out of anybody in that room. And that just has to do with how his career took shape, how he was recruited, the school he went to, how he was used in school. So those are just his circumstances. So the fact that he still looks like a raw wide receiver was because he was still a raw wide receiver. And there was even an episode, I found an episode, I didn't find the clip, I might post it later. Yes, Mickey, I agree, he has a good set of skills. But in a show, it was right after the draft happened, and I was talking about Simi. We ended up on the topic of Simi, and one of the things that I mentioned was that, like, when you are on a team where you're not that guy, a lot of times you don't train like you're that guy. And I say that, once again, that's something that I've noticed as a personal trainer, working with other athletes, and as a head coach of a competitive roller derby team. And roller derby is a contact sport, just like football. And one thing you notice is that a lot of the people who are at the top of their depth chart, so to speak, we don't really use the phrase depth chart in roller derby, but I'll use it here. But a lot of the people who are at the top of the depth chart, they feel a sense of responsibility. So when it comes to off-season training, they put a lot of work into training with other people. They might travel for clinics. They might host clinics. They'll work out by themselves. They'll pull together workouts with other people who play their position. And they'll put in all this work, right? Whereas sometimes the people who are lower on the depth chart, it's not that they don't feel that sense of responsibility. It's that a lot of times nobody has pulled them into those settings. So a lot of these trainers and stuff who do like specialized work, they'll reach out to the stars, and they'll reach out to the people that have like big names, like, you know, come to my camp, come work with me, come out to Miami, come out to LA, come work with me, da da da. And people who are lower on the depth chart, first of all, they're making less money anyway. So when it comes to traveling and working with all these specialized trainers, a lot of times that doesn't happen. And then just a lot of times they're not used to understanding, like, okay, why do I need to go out and train with like 3 different trainers in the off season and so on and so forth. So it's like, not only are they behind the 8 ball when it comes to their in-game experience, and a lot of times their practice experience, but then when it comes to all these little extra things that the stars do to level up, a lot of times they're just not in the habit of doing it. And so what I said on that episode is that you sometimes, when you're in that position where you're working the hardest that you've ever worked in your life, you don't realize how much harder how much harder you need to work to level up. So it's like, you'll be like, yeah, of course I'm working hard. I'm working the hardest I've ever worked in my life. And then it's like somebody's like, no, you should work harder. And they might make suggestions for you to work harder. And then you're like, oh wow, this is another level. I'm working the hardest I've ever worked in my life. And then somebody else comes along and is like, hey, actually you should incorporate this. And so it might be a few years before you actually get to the point of working as hard as you need to work, because somebody has to tell you to do that. And one thing that I've noticed when talking to a few people who have, you know, had their experience in the NFL is that I think there's like this impression that a lot of people think, like, okay, somebody's telling these guys what to do. Somebody's telling them what to do during the off season, but it's not like that. You know, a lot of times these guys, what they do in the off season, how they develop, is left up to them to just figure it out. Nobody's telling them what they should do different. If they're lucky, somebody might be in their life telling them what to do, but a lot of times they're just like left to figure it out. So I said all that to say, I think as soon as he gets in the right environment, and there are people who actually want to invest in him, like not just give him the opportunity to be on the practice squad and see what happens. Like people who are like really willing to sit down and make it an actual plan to say, okay, we see these raw skills, because he has it. If you read any scouting report from when he was drafted, there was a lot of talk of his size and how fast he is for his size, and how physical he is, and how he's not afraid of contact. He's not afraid to compete. So, yeah, I think at this stage, if he wants to actually make something of his career, he'll need somebody to sit down and be like, okay, we need a plan that doesn't just rely on the practice opportunities that you're given by a team. We need a plan for how you're going to level up during the season and in the off season, so that we can accelerate this curve for you, and help you reach your full potential. So, yeah, Jesus said, I had high hopes for Simi too. Seeing him working out with Dak showed that he was trying and putting in the work. Yeah, I agree. Seeing that was so exciting. But I think for him, he might need even more than that, and that's not a knock on him at all. Like, because a lot of players need more than that. If you watch CD's videos, CD did a lot besides just working out with Dak. But one CD makes a lot more money. And also, CD is one of those names that even if it's not the money, there are trainers out there who will work with CD for free just for the content, just for the promo. Simi does not have that luxury, unfortunately. So I don't know what his situation is when it comes to finding specialized trainers in the off season, because it's like not only do you need specialized trainers, you need somebody to tell you what kind of trainers you need. So, for example, when I work with an athlete, um, the first thing that I try to find out is like, okay, what skills do you need to develop? So that involves talking to them about what their position is and what it means to be great at their position. And so that means like, okay, what set of skills do you need? So in Sydney's case, route running was a thing that he probably would have needed to work on. So it's like, okay, what is it about his route running? From watching Sydney, one of the things that I noticed was that like his height changes weren't as there wasn't as big of a difference as it was with other receivers. So his agility could have improved a little bit. And I think had he been able to improve his agility and improve his height changes, it might have been able to improve his versatility in the way that he ran routes and the way that he created separation, right? But in order for him to even begin working on that, somebody has to have that conversation with him and look at the film and talk to him and be like, okay, here's what I'm seeing, yada, yada, yada. And in order for somebody to do that, they have to want to invest in him, meaning he would have to have a big enough name for them to want to invest in him, and or he would have to have enough money to give them enough compensation for them to want to invest, right? So it's not just a matter of like, okay, you go work with that, you get better. Like a lot of times these things that require fine tuning require somebody who's willing to take that time, watch your footage, work with you, and make like a detailed plan. For example, if anybody saw the post I made yesterday about Austin Richards, I was talking about his ankle mobility and quad dominance. Well, that came from watching a good amount of film on Austin Richards and noticing that pattern, right? So for Simi, somebody's got to be willing to do that with him. They've got to be willing to sit down and work with him on a plan to figure out how to fix those things. They've got to be trustworthy enough for him to listen to them. The plan's got to be something that will work, and it's got to be something that he can actually employ, because when it comes to in-season work, it's hard to find time to actually work on things often enough to improve, because it's like you play a game and then you're recovering. Now, someone in Sydney's position, at least you don't get a ton of snaps, so maybe your recovery process isn't long, so maybe you can squeeze in a few times during the week to work on your skill set and your mechanics and things like that. So that's something that can kind of work to his advantage. But most of that development, most of that improvement has to happen during the off season, So Martin, I agree. I hope he lands on the 53 somewhere else. I'm really hoping that a team looks at him and sees the skills that he does have, and also sees the raw skills that are there to be developed, and they decide to make use of it. I'm trying to read these comments. JV, that's a new name. Hi, thanks for joining us. CDTD Lamb needs to get his extension before the season begins. I heard conversations about that. I don't know where they are with that, but I heard enough conversations to where I'm not worried about it. But as far as value goes, it might be in the team's best interest to get that done. Okay, JV is apparently someone Mickey knows. Jesus says, I'm glad to see Tolbert make the cut, though. Happy for that guy after going to season one last week. Man, for real. So I didn't know a lot about Jalen Tolbert before he was drafted. So when everybody was like, oh, he's going to be this, he's going to be that, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm watching. And then I didn't see much. And what a lot of us did see wasn't that great. So I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, I guess I assumed maybe the team made a mistake. I wasn't that invested in Jalen Tolbert, I will say. But if you know me, if you watch me, one of the things that really gets me to like a player is when they show a certain work ethic, a certain drive, a certain level of investment into what they do. I'm very big into the intangibles. I love the intangibles. Like, I might like a player for what they do on the field, but once I see that, like, okay, this person has a certain set of characteristics that sets them apart, and maybe that's from me watching so much anime. If you watch anime, especially shonen, a lot of shonen protagonists are big on the intangibles, Naruto, I'm gonna be Hokage one day, like that whole thing. And so when they started talking about Jalen Tolbert and his work ethic, and Jalen talked about that Dak had given him a book, I think it was Relentless by Tim Grover. And then he was talking about getting in the gym, and people started talking about his confidence increasing. And he talked about how Mike McCarthy's system made things a lot easier for him to pick up, and he was feeling more confident, and things were making sense. And they started talking about how he's studying and taking notes. I'm like, okay, I'm like really starting to like this guy. And then you see all that work actually manifest itself into results on the field. And it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm happy for this dude. I'm happy he's a Cowboy. It was just really exciting to see that evolution and that development. And I'm also one of those people that, like, you know, even though when the offseason started, there was kind of this suggested competition between him and Simi, like, okay, who's going to be wide receiver 4? I'm not the type of person to ever wish bad on the team that I'm supporting. So it's like, you'll never hear me say, like, okay, I hope this person has a bad offseason, or I hope they don't do well just for the sake of my favorite player getting ahead. I'm not that type of person. I always still talking about extensions. So yeah, like I said, Isaiah Land, I don't know as much about him as a person, but I was just excited seeing what I saw from him on the field. And I could see that Isaiah Land also already had fans in a way. And so that was really interesting to me, just to see how many people were rallying around this guy and were supporting him and wanted to see him be great. So I was hoping he would stick around. Yeah, but those are the two biggest shockers for me. But since we don't have much time left, I'm going to go ahead and move on to some other topics. I might have more to say about cuts later. So the waiver deadline hasn't passed. There's still a few moves that are going to be made today and over the next couple of days in terms of trades. Not necessarily for the Cowboys. I just know that their team's making moves, right? So I kind of want to see how things shake out and get settled before I say a lot more about the other positions and other players who are still around. But as of right now, yeah, Isaiah Land was probably the biggest shocker, and Simi Fehoko being cut was the one that hurt the most. And it still kind of does. But wherever Simi goes, I said this a long time ago, so wherever Simi goes, that team is going to have a new fan. So I hope he can somehow make his way back to the Cowboys. But more than, as much as I want him to be on the Cowboys, because the Cowboys are my favorite team, so the idea of them bringing him back and putting him on the practice squad is kind of exciting, because it's like, okay, they still see his value, right? But if he actually has the potential to be on the 53 for another team, I want that for him, even if it means he's not a Cowboy. I want to see that happen for him. So yeah, wherever he ends up, like, y'all will be hearing a lot more news about that team. JV says Bohanna being cut hurt me the most. Yeah, that was shocking. I'm not really attached to Bohanna, but like when I saw that name, I was just like, what is going on? That was so weird. How I didn't make this roster and we still have ball is bewildering. Yo, I'm not gonna lie, same. I would love if somebody could explain that. I don't expect to get a coach on the show explaining that or anything, but like if there's any content creators out there or any analysts who have any insight onto how that possibly makes sense, like, please let me know, because I'm curious. I'm curious as to how a team can make that make sense. Yeah, especially with season-ending injury. I have no idea. And I know he's been placed on IR, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But yeah. So I'm probably gonna be on here for about 15 more minutes. So I'm gonna try to pull up this video real quick. That's gonna relate to the second part of this. I wanted to pull up a video of Dak play calling, and if I fangirl over it enough, I might pull it up even in a later episode, even though it'll technically be old news. And I say that because Mickey's the only one in the chat, so I don't know, maybe if you agree with me, you'll chime in. But like watching his command over the play calling duties and just how confident he looked, yo, that shit was hot. Like, I have to say it. Yeah. That was a really big deal for like me in terms of fangirling over Dak Prescott. That was actually kind of sexy. I never thought I would think play calling was sexy, but watching that, I was like, okay, yeah, like there's a next level of crushing on Dak Prescott, and I've reached it. But anyway, he did it. Okay, actually, before I pull up this video, I'm gonna chime in and say this about the whole Trey Lance Dak play calling situation. Just seeing Dak in the headset, yes, I was like, okay. I really had thoughts. I was just like, have you ever seen those posts that are like 4 words you could say to this person? It's like if you could say any 4 words to this person when y'all are alone, like what would it be? And I was like, my 4 words would definitely be like the headset stays on, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But yeah, so getting serious for a second. Thanks for fangirling with me, Nikki. I appreciate that. But getting serious for a second. So that day, you could tell was a little bit emotional for Dak Prescott. The Trey Lance news came down, and when the press tried to ask him about it, he said, "My heart and mind are with that guy over there," referring to Will Grier. Now, what's significant about that to me is the fact that he chose heart and mind specifically. He could have just said, I'm focused on that guy, or, I want to do my best play calling for that guy, but he said heart and mind, And a lot of people have come out recently and acknowledged the fact that Dak and Will Grier are close, that they're buddies. And I even wondered I was like, I wonder if that's why Grier ended up in 15, because that's Dak's college number. And I don't actually know. And Mickey said, Jesus says, I'll go that one. I love to see it. Dak is in his element play calling. Yes, his football knowledge is better than most people give him credit for. Dude, I saw a video of him explaining a play during an interview when he was in college. This man is smart. And it makes sense because, like, I'm sapiosexual, and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm seeing in this guy, that I'm just like, dude, like, fangirling on another level. And Mickey agrees. They forget how smart he is. I think people, like, really do forget how smart he is. But, yeah, back to what he was saying about Will Grier. He used the words heart and mind, which to me said that it was more than just, okay, I want to do a good job play calling to make sure he looks good. There was emotion in that play calling. Like, I know, well, I won't say I know men don't express their emotions, because like when we used to see like video of Dak and Zeke together, we could tell that there was a lot of love there, and they weren't afraid to show it. And I love that about their friendship, that they didn't mind hugging each other in public or saying that they loved each other in public. I do feel like the public needs more examples of that, of grown men who aren't afraid to be like, yes, this is my brother and I love him, but it's just like. It almost felt like Dak's play calling was a show of love to Will Grier. Like, Dak didn't want Will Grier to do good just to say, okay, I'm a good play caller. It's like he put his heart in that play calling. He wanted Will Grier to play the best game that he's ever played. Like, he wanted the league to see just how good Will Grier is, and he did that. Like, and so yes, Dak is smart. Yes, he clearly has a good grasp of this offense, but I think just from watching how he played that game and just the look on his face and the comments that he had about Will Grier, you could tell that was more than his head. That, like, his heart was in calling that game. Like, there were emotions that went into the way that he called that game, and honestly, it was beautiful to watch, because. Yeah, like, hugs and comments are an easy way to show that you care about somebody. But, being creative enough to be able to show through your play calling that you love and care for somebody, that's a whole nother level. And so shout out to Dak for just putting everything that he had into that game, to the point that it made national headlines, people talking about it. It's like, what other team do you know of to where the press knows all of their quarterbacks? I can't name the third string quarterback for a single other team, but I know that the Monday after that game, I heard the names Dak Prescott and Will Grier and Cooper Rush and Trey Lance all coming up on television. I'm like, 4 quarterbacks that became household names, at least for the morning, because of what Dak Prescott did for Will Grier in terms of play calling. That's pretty major. Yes, I agree, Jesus. It's hard not to love that. Okay, but on that note, I wanted to bring up something. This is something else that I posted about last night, and it's this whole idea of this year being the most important season of Dak's career. Now, I was struggling with how to present this idea because I agree with it and I don't. So the people who are saying that it's not the most important season of Dak's career, I agree with them on that note because of, in terms of things that have been on the line and things that he's had to deal with, I think we've seen him deal with a lot, right? And so him being in the season 8 years, it's really easy to look at other seasons and just be like, well, look at what he dealt with, look at what he had to overcome in terms of personnel issues and yada, yada, yada. And I think there are some people who just don't want to put a lot of weight on it because putting weight on it means having that discussion about the Super Bowl. Yeah, but honestly, I'm at the point where it's like, if the players are bringing it up, I'm cool bringing it up. Before, like, especially last season, I didn't like people saying that the team owed them a Super Bowl because I'm just like, it's not about owing us a Super Bowl. I feel like we want to see this team perform well. We want to see them do their best. We want to see them figure things out. But I think the narrative of, oh, if this team doesn't give us a Super Bowl, then they are trash, is bullshit. And so that's what I didn't like about it. But if the team has decided for themselves that they want a Super Bowl, and they've come together and decided that that's what they want to do for each other, I'm all for that, right? Now, the thing that makes this interesting as far as the season for me is that it's kind of like, okay, this is Dak's 8th season. So why is it just now that it seems like the front office is getting it together in terms of having weapons on both sides of the ball, having all the important positions, have legitimate threats, making smart trades, making really gutsy moves, really ballsy moves. I feel like we've seen the team like really play it safe and do a lot in terms of politics and really focus on the outward facing version of the Cowboys and what their broadcasting looked like and their marketing looked like. But they seem to be moving different in terms of how they're putting the team together. And that's really significant for me because I'm just like, okay, why did it take this long to get all these things in place for a guy who's clearly shown promise for a long time? So I'm going to pull up this video, and then I'm going to make some comments related to this video, and then I want to see what y'all think. It is early. I have not had caffeine, so yes, that my eyes got little tiny bags. Where is it? Nope. Okay, here it is.
That happens.
Yeah. I really wanted to go back in time and ask you about a couple of things because.
Oops. Sorry, guys. Hold on 1 second. I did not realize my laptop was dying. Okay. It might take a while to get this pulled back up, but I'm going to try to read y'all's comments in the meantime. And I guess this is what happens when you have several things plugged into your laptop. The battery just dies quicker. I don't know why I didn't think about that. Jesus says, the front office has finally evolved. We've watched them grow up in front of our eyes. That's one way to put it. I don't know if this is going to come back up, y'all. I'm working on it. It's just like, no, fuck you. Anyway, I'll try to get this back up and I'll post a video later. But what the video was talking about was essentially the fact that the year that Dak got drafted, there were a lot of and let me know if y'all can hear me, because I think now the sound might be coming through the phone. But yeah, basically the year that Dak got drafted, there were several other people that the Cowboys wanted in front of him. And they just kind of ended up with him, and it worked out for him because he was a fan of the Cowboys. But he wasn't exactly their first choice. He wasn't their second choice. And Martin, you've seen the video, so correct me if I'm wrong. He might not have been their third choice. And so essentially, thanks, Martin. So essentially, he was in a position where he came onto the team as a player that, to put it simply, he wasn't the guy that they wanted. And then the guy that they had in front of him, Tony Romo, got hurt. And so they ended up needing him. And so he goes out there and he does his thing, obviously. We all know the story of how that went. But he never was the guy. So he kind of did what he had to do, and the Cowboys stuck with him because obviously they had an understanding of the fact that, okay, it's hard to find a franchise quarterback. It's hard to find someone who can go out here and perform consistently, who can consistently be good. And yes, Dak Prescott has consistently been good. And so clearly there's a knowledge of that in the front office, but they also seem to not really understand exactly, sorry. And I didn't mean to use the word understand. It's not that they didn't understand. There was knowledge of that in the front office, but at the same time, it also seemed like they were kind of trying to figure out what to do in the meantime. And in so many words, they did not want to invest in Dak Prescott. And I'm not saying that because I've heard that. I've heard them say that they didn't want to invest. But it's just like, if you look at the moves that they did make and you try to make it make sense, the only logical response is, they did not actually want to invest in Dak Prescott. And now they're at a point where they're just like, okay, we actually do need to invest in this guy. So my laptop's back up. I'm going to see if I can pull up the video and let us look at it together. That is not what I want to do. There's two of me. No. Okay, and we're back. All right, so this video is only like a couple of minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring it back up. We'll watch it, and then I'll say a few thoughts about it, and then I'm gonna get out of here so I can watch Skywalker still. Yes. There's another me, Martin, if only. So let me go ahead and pull this up.
And
that happens.
Yeah. I really wanted to go back in time and ask you about a couple of things, because I covered the Cowboys draft in 2016, and I remember they desperately wanted Paxton Lynch in the first round. And Jerry Jones, the next day, it was like his dog died. He was so disappointed he didn't get Paxton Lynch. And then early in the third day of the draft, first pick of the fourth round, they think they have a trade made to go up and get the first pick of the fourth round to get Connor Cook of Michigan State. And finally, Jason's in the room, and Jerry and Steve, Jason Garrett and Jerry and Steven. And, I forget who said it, but somebody said, hey, listen, Dak is really good. Let's be excited about Dak. Come on, let's be excited. How much did you know that weekend of what was going on inside the Cowboys?
Yeah, I didn't know anything that was going inside the Cowboys that weekend. Learned weeks after, maybe months after, and getting all the details. And I'm pretty sure it was Coach Linehan that stood up and said, hey, Dak's good. Let's go with that route. So honestly, just reflecting back on that and knowing what could have happened, knowing that I could have been on another 31 other teams, but things work out and things happen for a reason. So some people.
All right. Let me try to fix this again. Okay, there we go. Although I think there might still be an echo. But yeah, so I just played that video for y'all. I couldn't hear it because of this setup, but hopefully y'all heard it. So yeah, it was like 3 people that they wanted before they eventually ended up with Dak Prescott. And so they were reluctant to take him. And it's my theory that they were still looking even after they got him. And from my perspective, that is, like I said, I haven't heard this from anywhere, but that is an explanation of the situation that makes it make sense. Because a lot of people have been like, why hasn't he been able to get it done before? Why Okay, now can you all hear me? Damn it, and I bet the echo is back. Y'all, I'm still done. Okay, can everybody hear me? Can everybody see me? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Oh Lord. All right. But yes, what I was saying was that's an explanation of the situation that makes it make sense. They were reluctant to pick him. They just kind of had to go with somebody. Somebody, at least one person around had put in a good word for him, and the three people that they wanted ahead of him, they weren't able to get. So they took the guy. And then Romo got hurt. And so then they were like, all right, we're putting you in. And then he did well. And so they're like, all right, I guess we're keeping you. So there was just a lot of reluctance along the way. And I think between trying to make Kellen Moore a thing as far as coaching and trying to make Jason Garrett a thing as far as coaching, this is the first time where we're actually seeing a culture that lends itself to a championship type team. Because one of the things that I can't get out of my head is how many people I've heard this season talk about the difference between Kellen Moore and Schottenheimer. Last year at the Star was my first time ever seeing an NFL practice in person. So I wasn't paying attention to what Kellen Moore was or wasn't doing. But Schottenheimer makes his presence known. He does a lot in terms of coaching the guys, correcting the guys, setting a certain tone, so on and so forth, that you can tell it drives them. It even kind of looks like, in my opinion, Dak has picked up on it a little bit, because it's like, I pay attention to personalities. I pay attention to like little things in terms of, just facial expressions, eye movement, tone. And Dak's tone has changed. His presence at the podium has changed. Something about his attitude is different. And so I think Schottenheimer taking over that role and the attitude that he brings to the team, I just have a feeling that that has a lot to do with it. And so, yes, all of those things are in place, but it really just feels like this is the first time that the team really seems ready to invest in the success of Dak Prescott. So for that reason, I think it's going to be one of the biggest seasons for him, and it is one of the most important, because now he actually has that investment. The only thing is, I think he's been ready for that investment. So I think this is an example of the team finally meeting Dak where he's been emotionally and mentally for the past couple of years. Um, hey, what's up? How's it going, Jay? So yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on what you think about why the team is making moves in a different way, because like I said, that's the explanation of it that in my opinion makes it make sense. And not only that, but I think there's a part of Dak that knows that. And I think there's obviously he's appreciative. Obviously he loves his teammates, but I think that there's a part of him that's just kind of sick of people asking about the interceptions over and over again. There's a part of him that seems to, I don't want to say resent. I'll say at minimum, he does not like the fact that people are questioning him because of the inconsistencies in the way the front office has moved, that people are doubting him, that people are questioning him, even with as well as the team is being put together. I think there's a part of him that is like, yeah, it sucks that I'm having to deal with this because the front office was dragging their feet and making an investment and putting this team together the way that they should have put it together all along. So yes, it came back. So let me see something. Because I've covered all the main topics that I have for today. Um, And even though I don't see anything announced yet, I think Will Still is going to be starting soon, and I definitely want to catch that. Let's see. We've got a comment from Kelvin. Dak is irritated because he is tired of being questioned, and it's like they're challenging his leadership. Yeah, and I don't think he deserves that. It's like we've all seen how this team is put together, but it's like when you point that out, people call it excuses. Oh, you're making excuses for Dak Prescott, and it's like, no, it actually takes a team to win these games. Like one of the things that I say a lot is teams can win games, but it takes an organization to win championships, you know? And it's like we see the moves that this organization is making. We've seen what they've decided to do and what they've decided not to do, yet somehow it still falls on the shoulders of a guy who doesn't even have as much control as he would need to make different decisions. Yeah, it's very odd to me. And if I were in Dak's position, I'll put it this way, I would be resentful. I would be resentful that every day I have to wake up to these comments, because even though he's not on social media, you know, it probably gets him one way or another. But yeah, I would be resentful that I have to answer these questions and answer for decisions that I didn't make and answer for shortcomings that aren't my fault. And I have to do it season after season, all because the front office and the powers that be never wanted me. And so they spent years hoping to find somebody else instead of investing in the talent that was right in front of them. I would be resentful. I would be mad. Like I would go scorched earth this season just to prove a point, you know? Imagine if Dak was as demanding as A-Rod. Yo, Nick, bro, like I'm always saying, Dak Prescott could never get away with the stuff that Aaron Rodgers gets away with. Can you imagine if Dak Prescott were to just disappear during the offseason and come back and be like, yeah, I was in the woods doing drugs for like 3 weeks, and then I decided to go on this darkness retreat and then come back and still like not get to the playoffs? Like they would burn him at the stake. It's so ridiculous. Jay says Dak will be solid. The new OC will have him playing to his strengths and won't make him throw in unnecessary situations when we can just simply run the ball and chew the clock. I agree. And I also like the way the new OC is influencing the culture. I had somebody question me on that recently, and I just really wanted to be like, dude, like, I cannot stand when people who don't even pay attention to the team try to question me on why I'm excited about what's happening this season. I'm just like, you sound like you haven't read a Cowboys headline even in the past 3 months, and you want to question me because I say there's a change in culture. Like, where do I see it? I was in Oxnard. I saw it. I was in Frisco. I saw it. And I'm like, if you're not at least reading the stories, if you're not at least watching the interview, much less like going to see it in person, then like stay the fuck out my mentions. Stay the fuck out my mentions. It's annoying. 2-week segment. What's a 2-week segment, Martin? Okay. I'm gonna get out of here because I don't have much more to say. Somebody asked me to do like they asked for video of what I was saying about Awesome Richards, which I'm assuming means they're asking for a video breakdown. So real quick before I get out of here, I'm gonna explain that. And then it's like, if this is something that y'all want to see video of, like leave it in the comments or just hit me up on Twitter and just be like, hey, that thing you explained, like I would love to see you do a video breakdown. And I say that because in order for me to do it, I'm gonna have to like take film from the all 22. I'm gonna have to slow it down and zoom in and do all this stuff. So it's gonna take a lot of work. But if it's something that y'all are interested in, I'll do it. Hi, Jay. But yeah, so basically all I was explaining about Awesome Richards and his ankle mobility and his quad dominance was essentially this. So let's say this is like my knuckles are a player's knees, and this is like their upper half. So where my fingers are meeting this hand, that's like their hips, right? So basically what happens is quad dominance. So your quads are your thighs. Your hamstrings are the back of your leg. Your quads are responsible for knee extension. In other words, the straightening of your legs. So if you go from bent knee, let's see if I put this in front of my shirt here. So if you go from bent knees to straight legs, you're activating your quads, basically. So what I'm seeing in Awesome Richards is that he'll stand with like, or he'll start with a relatively low stance. But because he has poor ankle mobility, as soon as he tries to accelerate or move, his quads kick in and he ends up a little bit upright. And so what happens is that makes it hard for him to anchor because he's having I won't say he's having trouble. He's just not like staying as low as he needs to. And also the thing with like actually attacking as opposed to catching, or the punch, so to speak. I feel weird using these words because I don't normally use them. But the thing is, like, let's talk about like a regular punch, or if you're pushing somebody like really hard. What that requires is grounding in the ground, and then that force has to be transferred from your bottom half through the core to your upper half, right? So if you don't have good command over your lower half and you're quad dominant, you can't properly transfer that force. So what's happening is basically because he has poor ankle mobility, he ends up being forward on his toes when he's low. So if he were to try to punch from that position, he would end up tabletopping a little bit, right? So he tries to keep his chest up, but in order for him to keep his chest up, his quads activate and it makes his whole body come up. So he just doesn't have the ankle mobility to keep his chest up and stay low and be able to punch all at the same time. But if he had a little bit more mobility in his ankles, it would allow him to stay lower so that he's more stable. And it would also give him a more solid base to transfer from the ground so that he could have a little bit more control over the movement of his upper body and the transference of that force. And he would then have a better punch. Yeah, so basically him popping up like that is ruining everything. And so sometimes when players deal with that, it looks like they just don't know what they're doing, or it's generally classified as bad technique. He just doesn't know how to have an anchor. He just doesn't know how to punch. And it's like, no, he might conceptually know how, and he might have had people tell him over and over again to stay low and do things a certain way, XYZ. But the thing is, if he does not fix that ankle mobility, no matter how many people tell him what to do, his body is just not in a place where he can do it. And so that's what I'm trying to explain. So if y'all want a better physical representation of that, like where I actually take the video of him and slow it down, let me know. And I can invest a little bit of time into making that happen. But in the meantime, in between time, I haven't seen the little thing that comes up in the live chat where it's like, hey, upcoming, but I'm pretty sure Will Steele is starting soon and I don't want to miss it. I want to make sure I get some coffee before that starts. So if he does have that show and y'all are there, I will see y'all there. And until next time, I'm Bitch 2 and I'm out. Definitely make the video. Thanks, Jay. I will make the video, even if I make it just for you. I will do it. All right. Y'all have a good night or good day. Sorry, it's early. Y'all have a good morning. I'm going to go get my coffee. Bye, y'all. Thank you for the subscribe. Bye, Brandon.